The climate crisis is a crisis of justice, fairness and equity. Only transparency will allow us to hold countries accountable for their cumulative contribution to the current crisis. We need the largest polluting countries to support a just, fair and equitable transition away from fossil fuels, such that countries who have contributed the least but carry the heaviest burden today are not left behind. The Fossil Fuel Policy Tracker is an open-source tool to help all hands to monitor fossil fuel-related policies in all countries globally, to identify best practices, and to show which countries are leaders and which countries are laggards. Only by showing which countries are being progressive and which countries are backsliding will we be able to manage a just, fast and fair transition away to a cleaner energy future. So what do we mean when we say a just, fast and fair transition, and how does our policy tracker help in this regard? To start with, we rely on data to ensure a just transition, a transition in which countries who benefited the most from the burning of fossil fuels help those who contributed the least. Our policy tracker provides important data on historical fossil fuel production and allows us to determine which countries are mainly responsible for the current greenhouse gas emission levels and thus ensure a more just transition. Data is also important for a fair transition, a transition in which countries are not only measured by their policy pledges to reduce fossil fuel extraction and production, but also monitored to go through with their pledges. Tracking policy developments allows us to monitor which countries are on track and which countries are lagging behind. It is essential to track the progress made by large fossil fuel producing nations that have made legislative commitments to cut emissions but continue to expand fossil fuel production. In this sense, our policy tracker is not only a tool to gather and categorize supply-side policies, but monitor the contradictory policies that some states may introduce. Currently, our policy tracker monitors supply-side restriction policies, such as bans, moratoria, subsidy reductions and divestments to ensure a fair transition. We are continuously expanding our data scope to cover both restriction as well as expansion policies. Last but not least, data is also important to accelerate a fast transition process, a transition in which all hands see what others are doing. Only through up-to-date information can we inform public policy and raise awareness in the public and private sectors. An informed and aware public is critical to mobilize political will, which in turn is necessary to fast-track the transition process. Our policy tracker provides up-to-date information and links these to their resources, such that people around the world can learn and adapt climate change mitigation measures in their workplaces, communities, cities and states by adopting best practices already employed elsewhere. Currently, the policy tracker covers over 1,800 supply-side policies globally and represents approximately $40 trillion in institutional divestment pledges alone. It is the first interactive online application that allows grassroots organizations, activists, policymakers and researchers to identify national and subnational progress in restricting fossil fuel extraction and production, shows how to adapt similar legislative approaches, and where the gaps are that need filling. I am particularly excited about one aspect of the policy tracker, a first of its kind really. We are starting to use artificial intelligence in the background of the application to identify and monitor policy developments. Why is this exciting? Well, as policy researchers, we are faced with an ever-growing number of relevant text data from various sources and in various languages, which makes it harder and harder to keep track of all new developments around the globe. Using cutting-edge AI tools, we can save time and resources while still achieving reliable results. What the AI will do in the background of the application is to scan various relevant data sources such as government databases, news articles, etc., and to automatically filter relevant text data for us. Finding and sorting through various data sources is a very time-consuming process, and so having a semi-automated text classification software is really a game changer. AI will help us accelerate the data gathering process and thus allow us for an almost real-time monitoring of developments so that stakeholders can react to these in a more timely fashion. We are continuously working on expanding our global reach and document scope by integrating multilingual text classification capacities into our tracker.